So let's see now what happens to Ratchet.
Oh, there, big guy. We're just
That's
getting
more
started.
of him than I needed to see, thank you very
I
much.
think Ratchet is
And the
about to
monkey
have a
was-
nightmare.
Yeah, the monkey was just humping Ratchet.
Especially all the details that the mask on Quark did nothing to cover his mouth.
It is okay, Ratchet. You can come in. It is safe inside
Uh-huh.
this door.
Well, welcome to the
So, yeah.
nightmare. Okay, good news is that this is the kind of level that the devs wanted to have in order to have some, trippy scenario that do not abide to the game logic, while at the same time recycling some assets, because you're visiting some potential previous locations, while at the same time experimenting with the stuff that you have. The bad news is that throughout the entirety of the level, because to symbolize the fact that you're inside Ratchet's, subconscious, you have these, very annoying filter swirling thing around your screen.
Which basically generates screen crunch.
Well, not necessarily. It's more a type of blurring, to symbolize, the nightmare effect. It's just that it's more distracting than anything.
That's why I said generating more of an effect of screen crunch. It's like you said, it's not actual screen crunch, but it has similar issues to screen crunch where it feels like you see less on the screen than you would like to, basically. Also, I see they brought back Ratchet's Doom and Halo armor from Deadlocked. That's cute.
Well, no,
Wow,
this is
no wonder he's having nightmares.
No, this is this larger armor, the green poison set, basically. And as you can see, it even lets his ears, flop by. If it was the one from Deadlock/Gladiator, it would be more, angular, rigid, and, covered also his ear. Also, what the fuck is the plumber doing?
Well, they did promise that the plumber would return, but honestly, Tio, I honestly thought this was just the game's take on the armor from that guy.
No, not really. They just, color-coded for what they do. In this case, it's green, so poison.
We talked about how this game...
What the fuck?
Is the game breaking?
Welcome to your nightmares for the next
Literally?
week, kids.
What the fuck? Ratchet, lay off the marijuana, jeez.
What did they do to him on that surgical table?
That's also laser eye that if it spots you, it's an insta-kill, a la Scarecrow from Arkham Asylum.
Well, Joba, if any other Sony platformers are meant to be invited, he's going to become purple and go super monstrous and edgy. So...
Yeah. God, those were weird times. But, yeah, no, we talked about how this game feels like it may have been trying to go the other route, but I will say, as far as I can recall, Deadlock didn't get any major backlash at the time, so I'm wondering if maybe this is just this dude. So, in some ways, while this is in some ways kind of the opposite of Deadlocked in terms of tone, I do chalk that up to more it just being a coincidence and the team just wanting to do their own thing.
Pretty much. Honestly, what I would love to see if it happened at all, considering, Deadlock was
Oh, hey, Drek.
Yeah, you get, PNGs floating around, or Chairman Drek, Dr. Nefarious, and the reporter, Carla Gretchen. I don't know why. Well, at least we have our ship. Oh, Jesus Christ, it's Quark with a chainsaw.
What the hell?
It's one of those... When it comes to the PSP spin-offs of first-party Sony games, I feel like the best ones that I've seen are the God of War ones.
I love how Ratchet was able to get an upgrade to his weapons in his dreams.
Oh, not just that. The bolts you collect do stay in your pocket. Don't ask her.
So you're saying that I just need to dream of more money, and I'll have more money. Thank you for showing me the way size matters.
Capitalism ahoy. No, again, I still have to try it, but I keep only hearing positive things about the Daxter spin-off on its own. I still like
Daxter is good, but I prefer Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta.
Honestly, for Deadlock Jova, what I didn't mention, while it's because it was still on the late but still PS2 era, what I would have loved to see, if they are present, or if something tells me they are, is what kind of weird, stupid printed ad the game would have had on PlayStation magazines. You know, those kind of, you know, play our game or piss off.
That's an interesting idea there.
The one that still takes the cake to me, in general, is the one for the first Chronoa, that for such a cutesy game, it first sells you as an STD, not even kidding, and then the tagline of the game is literally Namco telling you, blow up or shut up.
My goodness. So I legit have to wonder if one of the devs has legit done acid, because this feels scarily accurate.
Well, our ship is gone. Now what? Also, giant enemy crab also in the background. Yeah, in case you're wondering, it's confirmed also by another Easter egg that this was done, remember, after the PS3 infamous presentation conference. So the devs wanted to cheekily reference the giant enemy crab meme.
A lot of people reference that meme, so that checks out.
So this level is basically everybody's worst nightmare, all compiled into one.
I don't know. I don't see. Ouch. Yeah, I don't see Ratchet. You know, showing up at school without his underwear or something.
I will say the death animation for the laser one was surprisingly tame, given how hard Ratchet and Clank can go with
standard.
those.
Well, again, unlike
this
Crash,
is a PSP title,
even
though.
In general,
so
unlike the Crash, this franchise does not particularly try to have very unique death animations.
Oh, true, but usually they have something a bit more than just feints from lasers, unless I'm misremembering.
Honestly, from the times when I triggered it, it didn't seem to be. Anyway, interest boost between the levels, we get the fact that Clank has finally arrived. Hey, speaking of Jack and Dexter.
Come on, Ratchet, wake up.
Yep.
I guess whoever was about to operate on Ratchet conveniently left for long enough for Clank to rescue him.
It was lunch break. You know, it was
Yeah, like
important.
Tail said, that minute really feels very reminiscent of Jak 2 for some reason.
Actually, I was referring to the death screen of Ratchet and Jack and Dexter 1, Pedro.
Oh.
We are about to get, again, the devs kind of flexing a bit. They say, yes, this is the PSP, but we can still do cool shit. Because just look at this, the creation of the anger on Veldin. Okay, nothing too particular. Oh, also another titanium bolt. Forgot that I got it here.
You know, it'd be funny to imagine that.
Hold on, there is a mirror which shows Ratchet without his armor and an enemy inside. And if I read fragments and the enemy pops out. Again, if I fragment the mirror, the enemy multiplies. That's actually that's pretty cool. But even more, on this is a complete surface and I cannot pass through. But if I go behind, it doesn't have it. It literally generates the moment I turn the camera. That's actually pretty neat as a trick, especially for the PSP hardware.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I get the feeling they were specifically told by Sony that they needed to really show off what the PSP can do.
I mean, even in general, remember, the entire focus on this is to say, let's see if we can make a traditional, you know, Ratchet and Clank, a game that was like on the PS2 similar to Original Trilogy, but in pocket size, you know, for the PSP. And it's also probably why the focus on size changing, you know, it's kind of similar to how Crash Bandicoot, you know, first GBA game was either called the Huge Adventure or XS, you know, to represent also the size changing kind of thing. It's clever.
Like, it don't matter if it's on a handheld, you'll still have a huge adventure. Extra large.
Jesus. It's not even just the chainsaw, it's the fact that it throws you like a boomerang.
And yet somehow they make it look just that much freaky.
I mean, it is Quark with a chainsaw. That already should spell bad news to begin with.
True. You know, it'd be funny to think that if ever you need to go back for the completion, like, the way they explain Ratchet going back to this level is he medically induces himself back into a
Pretty
coma.
much, actually. As you will be able to see, after we're dealing with this nightmare, we will have to escape the place Ratchet was. But we will be able to come back if we want. And, oh look, the triangle console, like in Going Commando, the apartment on Bogon, the Bogon Galaxy. But you can go back, and there's literally the same medical bed where Ratchet is, and by just pressing triangle, you enter the level by Ratchet going into a coma again.
Wow.
Poor bastard.
Sorry, Ratchet, we didn't get all the bolts.
All to get the extra titanium bolts and skill points. My god.
Anything for completion, even literally driving the player insane.
I also get the idea Ratchet might be a bit afraid of needles, because that's what these bat creatures are actually representing.
He's also apparently afraid of chainsaws, too, though to be fair, a lot of people are afraid of chainsaws.
Considering its quirk, again, I have to stress, considering its quirk using them, yeah, I can understand.
Also, for some reason, he dreamed about the monkey in a wig trying to hump him.
Well, no, it was the nurse, Scrunch as the nurse, basically. Also, Clank's heads in the desert. Yeah, that's also another thing that I never really I only superficially spoke about. The fact that in the very last level of the third game, while you're chasing Nefarious, you get a bunch of, heads of Blarg-style Clank robots immersed in the desert. Remember, the traditional robots on Orxon did not really look like Clank, had a different even head style, so it was very deliberate. But as we will know, once again, as part of the retcons in A Crank in Time, Clank's design is unique on purpose, basically, even on the physical level. So, I don't know what they were trying to do. Again, hindsight is a bitch and everything, so I don't know exactly what they were trying to say in the third game on that matter. Maybe failed experiments where Nefarious was trying to clone Clank in order to create Clunk? I don't know.
Like, I guess if I could go with the obvious answer, Retcon Avenue, but, that's
I'm talking about, taking aside that, I'm talking about specifically in the context of the third game. Like, it just felt weird, a bit out of nowhere. Just for a cool visual impact, of course, but also, yes, you also get the suck cannon back, but fuck that. Don't care. Again, a lot of the weapons in this are basically similar to the ones of the first two games, usually, with a bunch of unique ones sprinkled throughout. The next game, Secret Agent Clank, will also throw in a bunch of ones from, instead, Up Your Arsenal and Deadlock Gladiator, because, to be fair, yes, the Arsenal was still one of the strong points of even that game.
And now we're fighting on top of bolts themselves.
Pretty much. While following the trip dimension. It's still also neat to lay out how they mask the teleportation with this kind of, watercolor-like effect. So,
which is cute.
Also, worth noting is that in this particular sequence, you kill enemies in waves, and after each, a portal appears. If you just wait and defeat that particular next wave, the portal will lead you somewhere else. If you actually defeat the hordes in a specific combination, the portals will actually take you to a throwback sorta to one of the bonus levels of Crash, where you had to jump on TNT in order to get the titanium bolt. That was cute. But yeah, for the boss of this area, you have a survival mode. Yeah, because you can even defend yourself against Giant Clank, and that really means giant. Although a shockwave-produced butterfly. Ratchet, need to stress again, what was in that nanotech that you got recently?
No.
Okay, to his credit, this is happening because he's being, was medically induced into a coma, so it's whatever the doctors pumped him full of, I'm guessing.
No, technically, don't worry too. Since he's afraid of needles, I don't think we have if everybody is full of nanomachines, Ratchet should be free from that. So there's that.
Ratchet, where are you even going?
To another world where. Okay, I'm not sure how to adapt the next lyric to the situation. Jova, help me.
What song were you even referencing?
Sonic
Can
R.
you feel the sunshine, apparently?
Oh God. Well, now that is a nightmare, I guess.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And yeah, they
song-
love it. The round ends with John Clank going super derp. Like that.
Yeah, if that song played in this game, the song will probably go like, "Can you feel the sunshine?" No.
Alright, moment of truth.
You must wake up. There is still so much to do.
Angel and the Devil moment.
Gee, I wonder which one is telling the good
This
thing.
is all my fault.
Hey, it wasn't your fault. I'm just too stubborn sometimes.
You can hear me?
You were
Yeah,
trying to
you're standing
cheer
right
up
here.
a fan of yours. I don't think either of you were particularly
Nice to
foolish.
have you back.
Alright, let's see if that Jack 2 payoff, actually exists or not.
I do not know why she did it, but I saw a video of you undergoing some tests. They were extracting something from you.
That's weird. I've got a major headache, but other than that, I feel okay.
Well, if we are going to get to the bottom of this, the first thing we need to do is get out of here and find Luna.
That's okay, Clank. I'll handle this one.
Well, now, someone means business.
I think you got him, Ratchet.
I'm just getting.
There we go. We got our
There we
Jack 2
are.
reference.
There you go, edgy Ratchet.
And now
Okay,
Ratchet's
okay.
become a maniac.
See, that's what
Okay.
I meant also, Dwayne, the fact that, yes, Ratchet is still beating his jerk-ass mode, but it's channeled in the right direction.
So, was this their way of kind of poking fun at Jack 2, or are they serious with this?
Possible. Well, no, okay, no, it still has to be treated completely seriously because, well, again, there's the fact that Ratchet was experimented on, without his consent, so I can understand him being very pissed, if I have to be honest. But there's also the fact that they did not just poke needles inside him and see what happens. They did something to him. As he mentioned, it doesn't feel anything particularly different. So outside of having our arsenal, stripped and thus we need to get it back, there's nothing particularly that hinders our combat abilities or platforming. But by the end of the level, you will see what they actually did.
Up until this point, the game has definitely felt more lighthearted compared to most of the Ratchet games, but now at this point, it's like
Things is
suddenly
serious, yo.
sets. Yeah, like again, that's part of why I wondered. Wait, are they poking fun at Jack 2, or are they serious about this?
I honestly don't even think they were intentionally wanting to reference that, but even if so, maybe they wanted to try to have the same kind of scene, but in a potential better context. And to be fair, I have to be honest, even in the original version of Jack 2, Jack getting pissed and uttering as his first, spoken line, "I'm gonna kill Praxis," that really felt understandable, if you ask me. If you were in that situation. But honestly, the other thing that's worth noting is that if you pay attention, compared to, excluding a bit deadlocked, I suppose, but compared to the second and third game, this is a return also to have a more type of personal story for Ratchet and Clank. While not on the level of the first game, the Technomites are now basically a type of foe that wants to, deal with the duo on a personal level, compared to the chase around the Protopet and, the deals with Megacorp and the famous, galactic conquest in general. This is very more localized for this specific duo. In fact, the villains will actually specifically mention that they needed Ratchet for their purposes. Anyway, just to mention, sprinkled throughout this specific level, you get also this minigame. An escort mission where Ratchet suddenly forgets how to defend himself and is entirely focused on actually fixing the door, while Clank enters this machine that fires Ice Beam, okay, and needs to actually freeze the Technomite bots that are attacking him. But,
I guess they
and to
didn't
be
really
fair,
want to think of hacking mini games.
And well, yeah, that's true. But we will get a hacky minigame in Secret Agent Clank. And hey, to be fair, as Knack actually taught us, ice is nice. So
Of course it is. I mean, yes. I mean, when it's in a glass and I'm drinking juice out of it, then yeah, anything else.
now, to be fair, if you know what you're
But
doing,
ribs.
if you know what you're doing, this escort mission is actually not too bad. The spiders need the free hits in order to be dealt with, and you need to wait until they unfreeze to hit them again. But as you can see, it's doable, even the other two attempts.
But Webs, the penguins of Who Framed Roger Rabbit clearly show that the best way to drink is not with ice cubes, but with rocks in the glass. Don't you see?
Well, they're
course.
penguins. I'm a human being.
Get it? That's scotch on the rocks.
What a story,
Yeah,
Mark.
well, again, they're penguins. I'm a human being. I drink different.
And also the fact that, as you can see, you have your arsenal to get back piece by piece, but don't worry, if I recall correctly, in this very room, after you clean up, you'll be able to get all of the rest of the equipment. There you go. Shit. And yeah, as you can see, despite the fact that I have, better armor, this is also the point of where the game starts actually throwing hard hits, particularly of the big guy. I don't make it look too hard, but the missiles that the big guy launches can actually skim off at the very least half of my current nanotech, so you need to watch out.
That does sound brutal.
And again, since this is based strictly around the original trilogy, compared to that block, there is no difficulty selection. It is just a preset, with obviously challenge mode ramping things up to compensate with your weapons leveling up again. Also, as you may notice, but the Doctor Technomite robots have a tendency of projecting a shield onto the big guys, so you need to try to target them first.
How nice. They know teamwork.
Someone played Team Fortress.
Man versus mech mode.
Although, to be fair, the Man vs. Machine was released only a few years after this game was released, and that was the one that introduced the upgrade for the Medigun that projected a shield or anything. There you go. At the very least, we get another gadget from vendor. And yeah, this is also the point where they start to give you the upgrades of stuff like the Bolt Breaker and the Grabber, instead of you finding them naturally. It showcased the fact that, again, the game has a smaller scope, so they could not cram all of the gadgets in different pathways that you could find, alas. Like I also said, this is actually the point also where David Bergeron type of score starts assuming an actual identity for the franchise that I actually do not mind. Particularly for this first station where, things are more dire, so it's conveyed a bit better without having to sound too stock-ish. Oh yeah, there's also another thing that I don't think he even mentioned in the Resistance Retribution run, considering that was our first major PSP games with a run of. If you never had the pleasure, I guess, to actually play on a PSP, the trade-off of having that kind of technology on the go is that unfortunately The analog stick had a tendency of being a bit fragile. I'm so, this is sad for all the Monster Hunter players who had to play the Freedom United trilogy and had to deal with the analog stick fucking up constantly because of that. I don't know how
What are
you
we
did,
talking like
but
drift or just a
oh no,
break?
breaking, because it's
Ooh.
instead of actually being a single object, that is jammed into it, it's a plate that's stuck on top of a stick, of an actual stick, in order to actually simulate. And in order to not protrude too much out of the console, it's actually jammed a bit inside, and the plate stuff basically moves on the surface where it is. Again, it's smooth technically, but if you actually, ram it too much, it has the risk of breaking it very easily. And again, we were mentioning the God of War spin-off, so yeah, those two also have QTs that require you to do that, so... I'm just glad that most of the games are available on a system that allows you to not having this kind of risk. And even then, as noted with Resistance Retribution, a lot of the games were eventually made so that via a type of cross connection you could be able to play using the DualShock 3. Anyway, important stuff, because it's time to find out what we were doing to Ratchet.
What is this place?
I believe it is a laboratory of some sort.
They were copying game files from the devs' background rooms.
Diabolical.
Battle animations, betas, everything is here.
Nobody messes with me.
They extracted something from him. Oh, okay, I guess throwing an empty vial at the engine makes it crash. Who would know?
Has Ratchet got explosive liquid in his blood or something?
I mean, okay, it's not mentioned really directly, but the Future Saga mentions that the Lombaxes tend to be very, very combat oriented, so who knows, maybe. And yeah, now basically need to do the final portion under a time limit. It might seem a bit stingy at first, but trust me, you can do it very easily.
While I don't remember this game's plot as much, I do remember how a lot of other future titles would put more emphasis on Ratchet and his species. I wonder if this is where it started.
Well, potentially, because, Tools of Destruction was in production at this point, even if I don't think it had been unveiled completely yet. But, mind you, that was the entire point of the Future Saga, to instead being very character focused and specifically talk about the origins of both characters, the main characters. Because yeah, when you get down to it, outside of Angela, it's kind of weird that we haven't seen any other Lombaxes in the universe, not even in the galaxy. So that was a question that TJ Fixman was tasked to actually answer, and what he came up with was something that we will see starting with Tools of Destruction.
And it's still going on to this day. Whereas,
Yeah.
okay,
Hopefully, the next game will be D1 that finally gives like a conclusive answer on that front.
I'll just say, I've always found the whole species issue to be kind of a manufactured issue since, again, without spoiling what's the dilemma, it was never suggested that that was an issue for his race beforehand.
No.
This station is about to explode. We must leave now.
Here it is. Luna's last entry.
The tests are complete, Emperor Otto.
Anyway,
I'm
Luna
headed
is
to the
talking
city
with the
passes
actual
now.
main villain of the game, Emperor Otto
Are you
the
sure the
Destructor,
gun
leader of the
tents are
Technomites.
Quite sure. We created one subject, and it took 26 of our best warriors to destroy it. How are things coming on
Oh,
your
it's
project?
even worse than that.
Planted the fake evidence.
Apparently they did
Court
clone
weak
Ratchet,
mind is
while
so
the
easy to
fake site
manipulate.
was to actually fork instead.
I will contact you
So,
when the delivery
yes.
is completed. Luna out.
I have
So
the
it turns out
coordinates.
whoever's doing this has a bone to pick with all three of our heroes. You know, Ratchet, we really need to stop meeting like this with a space station exploding.
But dude, where's the fun in that?
Safety. Safety is the fun in that.
Alright, the
Safety's no fun.
game puts you back immediately in the ruins, mostly because you need your next gadget with yet another minigame. Specifically, another type of, course with the racing guy.
Okay, here's the deal. I got these two identical skyboards for us to use, right? We'll race one more time to prove who's the best.
Is that a polarizer attached to your dark matter?
Dude, Ratchet
acceleration
just got
module?
experimented on. I don't know if he's in the mental state for
I
that.
never really noticed it before. So what do you think, Runt? You want to give it another go? I'll give you the polarizer if you beat me.
Yeah, why not?
Eh.
And then Ratchet's looking at him as like, I'm going to kill this guy afterwards.
Thankfully, no, we're
Again.
not doing that.
Again, Dwibs, he's had it a bit rough, to say the least.
Remember, he started literally the day with the fact that he was supposed to get a massage at Kokitaru.
And then he ended up being tortured and experimented on. Like, Jesus Christ, at least with Crash Bandicoot, he only relaxed on the beach after he had been tortured and experimented on.
Ratchet is in no more Mr. Nice Guy mode, Twibs.
And yet, I'll give him credit, he still is probably handling this a bit better than Jack did. Though,
Well,
I guess
once again, you have to understand also the context, the full context of Jack,
I
because
joke about it, but there's a context about it.
It was literally flung in a complete different setting, completely alien to him, and let's just say, without spoiling, that the following revelations that got, dropped on him and Dexter did not help things at all.
Oh yeah,
That is true.
Everything about that happens in that is properly explained, but you also have to understand things from at the time when the game first came out. You have to understand, like, you play Jack 1, and it's a very typical Rareware 90s type platformer, right? That's lighthearted, and it's not so much about plot, it's more about the game. But there is plot, don't get me wrong, more even than Banjo-Kazooie and stuff like that. But it's still a relatively lighthearted platformer all around. Then you go into Jack 2. And Jack 2 starts in such huge contrast to how the first game was that it's so jarring.
It also
Would you say it's like going from... Would you say it's like going from Banjo and Kazooie to Conker's Bad Fur Day?
Well, I do not, because Conker still despite being the mature tone, the Conker still retains
the tone.
Well, but the thing is that Conker still retained the aesthetic. That was part of the joke.
Not just that, Joe, but Conker's Bad Fur Day was not sold to me as Banjo free.
Yeah, that's
Well, okay, again, when I'm speaking hypothetically, it's like, basically going from something on the tonal level of Banjo-Kazooie to something on the tonal level of, well, okay, maybe not the tonal level, but imagine going from something kid-friendly. Okay, to be fair, even with Banjo and Kazooie, I gotta use quotation marks with kid-friendly, but Banjo and Kazooie technically was kid-friendly enough to get past the rating censor. Conquer Bad Fur Day, not so much, but whatever. Let's keep it simple and just say, because yes, I do get the context with Jack too, that, yeah, okay, better comparison. This is like going from Sonic 1's upbeat chipper tone to Shadow the Hedgehog.
Yes. Well, remember, Joe, it's basically the exact same thing. Sonic Heroes is super lighthearted and very power of friendship game, and then you go to Shadow the Hedgehog, and it's like both games are the polar opposite extremes of the tone spectrum.
Even in universe, one of my favorite Jet videos is the short where he compares the heroic and evil route, where the heroic is just Sonic saying, "Hey, let me help," like racing until the end of a level, and the evil route is Black Doom saying, "Hit the second tower, Shadow."
Yeah, but okay, I will give Shadow and Heroes some credit. I feel like Heroes wasn't as much too jarring for a lot of people, since Heroes was a bridge point from Sonic Adventure 2, which was pretty dark itself as well. Whereas Jak 1 went from, like, legit, a series that, as far as we knew, was just nice, upbeat, and chipper, suddenly going to something that would make even Bomberman X-Zero blush in some regards. Well, I say in some regards because it didn't go all the way.
It also, in hindsight, makes the plan of the villains of the first game kind of pointless in hindsight. But
I've never been a big fan of that. But
you can tell that kind of like what happened with TJ Fixman never addressing what happened to Angela. You can tell that there was not enough communication between the original writers and the new writers, and like something got lost in the transition, basically.
Anyway, see you for the next part, where we go to the coordinates that were labeled for a Technomite city of all places. See ya.
See ya.
See ya.